How's it going, people? SamusLabby here, and this is Runescape Lore, where we talk about, well, the histories and everything that's going on in the background in Runescape. So, with that said, today, well, I kind of just randomly come across this and found it fairly interesting, so I thought I'd tell you about it, because, well, like I said, it is the first time I've heard about it. And this is a story all about how no, never mind. This is a story about a Siren, and well, if you don't know what a Siren is, they're from the Player-Owned Ports game. You find out about them and they come from the Eastern Lands. This is a story about a very particular Siren, which, as far as we know, apparently made use of the Elder Horn, is one of the rarer Elder artifacts actually. One which we barely know anything about for the most part, and pretty much just haven't heard about it, to be totally honest. Which is why I think this might be a bit of an interesting talk, since, well, I don't think many people actually even know about this. So here we go then, we're talking about Quin, which is the name of a very specific Siren. So, let's get started. Well, Quin is an incredibly powerful sea singer of the Wushanko Isles. Her right-hand man is her personal bodyguard that goes by the name of Discord, who rides an albino narwhal. She also once had another bodyguard known as Zuzu, whom she made research on immortality, and because of this they became very close, although Zuzu did later on betray her. It's known that she resided on an island known as Paradise in the Pincers Isle of the Wushanko Isles, the Eastern Isles I should say, living in a jade palace on 4 golden pillars. Now, one of the main things we actually know about this is the Quin conflicts. That's literally what they're known as. Well, the Quin conflicts were a series of battles and conflicts in the late 5th Age that came about as a result of the sea singer Quin obtaining, as well as using, what we think to be the Elder Horn to control all of the sea monsters of the Wushanko Isles, and simultaneously demanding that she be worshipped as a goddess. Now, as a bit of a prelude to this, not much is really known about Quin's activities prior to these conflicts or this war, but eventually she learned of a young woman that went by the name of Zuzu, at the time a soothsayer. Zuzu grew up on an island of Aloft Dagger, an island of soothsayers, who taught her. However, her ability soon began to outmatch everyone else's, which in turn scared them, and the soothsayers began to keep her isolated and only fed her very little. Upon hearing of Zuzu though, Quin demanded her release and took her into her employ, training her as an occultist, powerful soothsayers who hadn't been in Wushankos for decades, who sacrificed more than small animals. Quin gave this Zuzu the remit to sacrifice anything that she desired, including humans. And later on, Quin and Zuzu soon became very close. Eventually, through unknown means though, Quin was somehow able to obtain a powerful horn, which we do believe to be one of the 12 Elder artifacts created by the Elder Gods. Which leads us into this war with Quin. In approximately 149 of the 5th Age, using her newly acquired Elder artifact, Quin started enhancing her already potent sea singer abilities, now possessing the ability to command all of the sea monsters in Wushanko at once from a very far distance. While the majority of them had previously been slightly passive, with the horn she was able to make them attack any passing ship within the Wushanko while she was safely inside Paradise, which she never actually left. Using her new abilities to her advantages, she proclaimed herself to be a goddess, or she wanted to be known as Khan of the Sea, and demanded the citizens of Wushanko to actually worship her as such. However, despite the leverage Quin had, as the Easterners mostly perceived worship of gods as, well, pointless and silly, to be totally honest, they simply straight up refused her demands. This started a conflict later described as an all-out war between the sea and the land, which in turn cost the lives of tens of thousands. As a result of the war, contact between Wushanko and the western lands was completely cut off, and John Strum, portmaster of a private dock in the Asgardian port Siren, sent a fleet of ships to report on what happened. Only a few of these ships actually managed to return though, and when they did return, they brought stories with them of huge sea monsters, hydras, huge flying turtles, whales the size of islands that ate only men's skulls. One of the thousands that died as a result of Quin's actions was a captain known as Lily, who was romantically involved with John Strum, and on learning of her death he spiraled into a depression. His port, kind of showing this, also started to fall into disrepair, due to the lack of trade with Wushanko. Quin's sea monsters, however, continued to attack ships and settlements. One such settlement was known as Shattered Beams. A whale known as Shuma had regularly raided the island for fish, and one day Shuma became trapped in a cave network. Hubbub, Khan of the island, travelled there with the best of his whalers, and they were able to deafen her. By stabbing a spear deep into her skull, many of the whalers died throughout this battle though, and it did cost Hubbub his leg. Meanwhile, as Hubbub wasn't there to defend it, sea monsters controlled by Quin tore down the city, drowning his people. By the time Hubbub actually managed to return, the city was completely annihilated, leaving only one survivor. Hubbub later witnessed another attack on a village, with an assortment of sea monsters led by Discord, one of Quin's left-hand man, his bodyguard, who rode an albino narwhal. Being responsible for the attack, Hubbub confronted Discord about the attack, and he quickly revealed that Quin was responsible, using some kind of ancient horn to wake as well as control all the sea monsters at once. Quin was eventually victorious in this war, but it did come at a great cost, as the number of sea monsters she controlled were greatly reduced. The decrease in sea monsters meant the contact between the west and east once more resumed. As a result of this war though, many of the ruling Khans of Wushanko wished Quin dead, as you would expect, and soon petitioned an order of assassins known as the Death Lotus to assassinate Quin. Although due to a fear of failing and evoking Quin's wrath, they simply refused, no matter how much they were offered. In approximately the year of 167, Hubbub, seeking revenge for the death of his people, offered more wealth than all the other Khans of Wushanko combined, and, as a result of this, the Death Lotus finally agreed to try to assassinate Quin. The leader of the Death Lotus goes by the name of Babytooth, who chose his student for the job, a 16-year-old assassin known as Ling, who was one of the best of her craft. They smuggled Ling to paradise via a merchant ship, and she was able to enter the palace and position herself in the rafters near Quin's chambers. It was there that she waited, and eventually Quin appeared. But Quin didn't come alone. She did come with Zuzu as her only bodyguard. Ling quickly threw a dart at Quin though, but Zuzu sensed her presence and used her staff to deflect the dart. Ling fired again, but this time Zuzu used a spell to make fire burn Ling's face, and simultaneously make the dart miss. Zuzu then called for the guards, forcing Ling to flee through the window. Ling was then forced to leave the Death Lotus and become an exile after she escaped, having both her hands cut off by Babytooth's son, Wu. Soon after, Quin recruited the Death Lotus assassins to guard her island, making reaching her even more difficult than ever before. As a result of this attempted assassination though, Quin became paranoid about further attempts on her life being taken, and simply became obsessed with immortality, desiring to live forever. She put her main occultist, Zuzu, in charge of the project, giving her everything she needed to help her research it. And eventually Zuzu was able to discover a method to achieve immortality, sacrificing a family of sea monsters, in this case Shuma's family, and twisting their intestines into a spiral. She focused the ritual on herself and gained immortality. However, while she was testing her newfound immortality, she realized that nobody should have this kind of power, as nobody would ever be able to stop them, and realized that Quin had become paranoid and genocidal, and thus no longer desired to serve her. To escape Quin then, she seduced a visiting Khan known by the name of Aroshu, who had 200 wives, and made him a promise to get her off the island in exchange for her hand in marriage. Aroshu agreed to this and actually smuggled her out on his leisure barge, and Zuzu was able to escape him by using a pin in her corset to pick the lock. In the years since, Quin repeatedly tried to capture Zuzu and return her to paradise so she could learn the secret of immortality from her, and tasked Discord with capturing her. Discord eventually did actually find Zuzu, while she was seeking a body for a ritual to reverse her immortality, but he was unsuccessful in capturing her. Later, Aroshu ran into Zuzu whilst he was seeking some blood for the ritual, and he once again demanded that Zuzu marry her, and took the items from the ritual that Zuzu had collected from her. Zuzu, in turn, quickly devised a plan to retrieve them, and ended up writing a letter to Aroshu promising that the wedding would be that day if he made it a big occasion and invited all the Khans and sea singers. Delighted at such news, Aroshu sent an invite to Quin, who sent some lackeys to collect Zuzu, while the soothsayers who despied occultists sent forces of their own. Zuzu had the portmaster take advantage of the resulting chaos, and the crew was able to retrieve the ingredients for the ritual, which Aroshu had planned to give as wedding gifts and rescue her. Zuzu's ritual ultimately proved unsuccessful, and she still retained her immortality. Out of options, Zuzu decided to attempt to end her life by throwing herself down the hole in the world, a bottomless pit within the Pincer Islands. However, whilst there, Discord once again managed to make an appearance, still wanting to capture her. The portmaster was able to retrieve Zuzu before Discord captured her once again, foiling Quin's plans. Quin, wishing for revenge on the one who had tried to assassinate her, also bribed the informer and friend of Ling, Kirao, by threatening to level his village of Tatanogi and kill his family, friends and crew if he did not set this trap to kill Ling. As a result, Kirao claimed that Babytooth was visiting the training camps of Tokoko, knowing that Ling would go there to kill him, when he had actually laid a trap to kill her there. Due to the assistance of the portmaster, the trap was once more unsuccessful, and Ling was able to escape. When she discovered Kirao's betrayal, she reluctantly killed him. Shortly after Quin's failed attempts once again to capture Ling and Zuzu, and hubbub preventing Schumer from destroying the new heritage, John Strum, now merely a partner at his old port, now being run by the portmaster who had been helping the trio, called Hubbub, Zuzu, as well as Ling and the portmaster to his office. Once they had arrived, he revealed that he had been listening to their stories and filling the gaps by reading their journals, and realized that their stories all seemed to overlap, and that they all had an enemy within Quin. Thinking that it wasn't mere coincidence that they had all come to the same port, he proposed that a higher power was telling them to kill Quin. He then revealed that he had a plan to actually pull this off, one that would get through Quin's sea monsters, assassins, as well as her traps. The portmaster quickly agreed to the plan after seeing it, as did Hubbub, Ling, as well as Zuzu. The first part of John's plan was to send Hubbub to recruit Schumer, who Hubbub had learned to talk to as well as become friends with, as Schumer's deafness meant she was immune to Quin's sea singer abilities. After Hubbub visited Schumer in her home in the Glitter Caves, she quickly agreed to this plan, wishing revenge on the one responsible for the death of her family. The next part of the plan was to recruit Kirao's pirate crew, who had been killing Quin's sea monsters in an attempt to keep Quin isolated within paradise. Both the portmaster and John proposed that Ling be the one to recruit them, claiming that they would forgive her, as Quin was the one who they were truly angry with. Although Hubbub and Zuzu wanted to go too, John ensured that only Ling went, and she was successful in both gaining their forgiveness as well as recruiting them for this mission. John Strum himself also insisted that he physically take part within this mission, seeking revenge for the death of Lily. Although initially disallowing it, the portmaster did eventually allow him to go. The final stage of this plan was reaching the island itself, infiltrating the palace and finally killing Quin. After explaining his plan to John, Ling, Zuzu, as well as Hubbub, the pirates and Zuzu set off to the island to actually execute it. To get past the sea monsters and onto the island, the ship of Kara's crew were tied to Shuma's tail, and Shuma, being ridden by Hubbub, acted as a battering ram, breaking through the sea monsters around the island, turning before reaching the island while Hubbub disconnected the ships, sending them speeding towards the island itself. Shuma and Hubbub then battled the monsters around the island while the ships ran aground, destroying the assassin shacks at the shore. Kira's pirates, Ling as well as John Strum, then emerged from the ships and battled the assassins, who were at a disadvantage due to the daylight and not having anywhere to hide. Finally, Zuzu simply walked through the fight up to Quin's palace, taking advantage of her knowledge of the area as well as her immortality, making her immune to Quin's traps. It was here that he fought against Quin, easily killing her due to her lack of combat ability, before proceeding to cut out her heart and put it on a stick. Although the assassination was ultimately successful, it did come at a cost. John Strum died in battle, along with all of the assassins. Although he himself had no intention of surviving, wishing to end his life fighting Quin. In addition to John, Shuma also died from her wounds while she was being escorted back to the Glitter Caves by Kira's crew. Nevertheless, despite the losses, Hubbub, Ling and Zuzu were extremely happy with this success, quickly making plans for what they were going to do next, with Ling planning to set up an assassin guild of her own to bring the revival of the Death Lotus, Zuzu wishing to find some eligible bachelors in the west, and Hubbub wishing to give the portmaster a simple hug. So that is the story of Quin and the Eastern Islands. You get all this information from doing player reports, in case you was wondering, but it's basically the Wushanko Isles storyline, and it covers a lot of it. Basically, Quin was a sea singer, and she came across the Elder Horn. Now, whether or not perhaps the Elder Horn kind of has an adverse effect, because that tends to be what happens with Elder artifacts, let's be honest. She tried to use it, and when she did, she could control all of the monsters across the sea within the Wushanko Isles, which is a pretty large area. And with that, she wanted to be known as a goddess, although obviously this is kind of nonsense, because it takes time in order to actually become a goddess from the energy coming off any Elder artifacts. But yeah, she wanted to be known as one as much, but this is the Eastern Isles. No one believes in gods in these isles, or at least don't follow any gods. So obviously it was just brought back with a no, that's not going to happen. So yeah, at which point goes a bit mental since she's now all powerful, kills off most of the population and subjugates them. And with that, well, as you'd expect, if you were subjugated, you'd probably want to kill the person responsible for the death of pretty much everybody yourself as well. So yeah, assassins were assigned and sent to eradicate Quin, literally annihilate, kill, slaughter. But the assassin failed, and because of this, Quin became immensely messed up, became hugely paranoid, and at the same time knowing that pretty much everyone underneath her, or at least thinking everyone underneath her, is after her life, slightly genocidal. So with that kind of power, using the Elder Horn, managing to control all of the monsters, yeah, it's probably within her power to annihilate most things that come at her. And at the same time, she also got her sidekick, the bodyguard Zuzu at the time, to try and learn about immortality. And actually managed to pull it off and became immortal herself. But once she was immortal, she realised how drastic immortality could be, and how unstoppable it is. At which point she wanted to try and delete this curse, just get rid of it. So she left, and at the same time didn't want to hand this information or power over to Quin, which is at the time a bit mental, genocidal, you know, not good, bad times. And there you have it. That's pretty much the rest of the story. From there, she goes on the run, and at the same time meets up with different resistance factors, and under some stroke of luck, all of these people met up at the port within Asgarnia. The port that you run. The player-owned port. And with that, all of the resistance kind of joins hands under your leadership, and you set out a skirmish to assassinate Quin for the last time and manage to pull it off. although not without consequences and losses. So all in all, I thought it was a nice little story. Eastern Lands, we don't really hear much about the Eastern Lands, so there we go. Hopefully you all enjoyed that, and until next time people, I will catch you all later. Have a good one.